Nobody hands you a manual when the doctor says there's nothing more we can do. They just send you home with a pamphlet and a phone number for hospice. One moment, you're a spouse, a child, a sibling, and the next, you're a full-time caregiver with zero training and a to-do list that would make a hospital administrator sweat. Now imagine you've just stepped into the role. Nobody auditioned for the person who manages every pill, every appointment, every middle of the night panic, while also somehow being the emotional rock for the person who is dying. You didn't apply for this job. There's no salary, no sick days, and the HR department is just you standing in a pharmacy at 11 p.m. trying to figure out if the morphine prescription needs a prior authorization. How do you love someone through the hardest chapter of their life while also managing the administrative avalanche that nobody warned you about? And why does it feel like the grief and the logistics are competing for the same square inch of your chest at exactly the same time? Here's what the brochures won't say out loud. Caregiving for a terminally ill loved one is split roughly between profound tenderness and mind-numbing bureaucracy, and the ratio shifts without warning. 1 hour, you're holding their hand while they tell you something they've never told anyone, and the next, you're on hold with the insurance company disputing a claim for a hospital bed that arrived 3 weeks late. The medication management alone could fill a part-time position at a mid-sized pharmaceutical company. You become fluent in words like breakthrough dosing, bowel protocol, and transdermal patch rotation. Not because you went to nursing school, but because nobody else was going to learn them. The appointment calendar turns into something resembling a military operation. And you start color coding it, not out of personality, but out of survival. There's oncology on Tuesdays, palliative care on alternating Thursdays, the home health nurse on Mondays and Fridays, and somewhere in there you're supposed to fit in your own existence. Maybe eat lunch, maybe sleep more than 5 hours. And then the paperwork arrives, and it keeps arriving, like some cruel subscription service you never signed up for. Advanced directives, do not resuscitate forms, hospice enrollment documents, power of attorney updates, medication logs, insurance pre-authorizations. It is a paper empire, and you are its reluctant emperor. What nobody tells you is that some of the hardest days aren't the dramatic ones. They're the Tuesday afternoons when your loved one is having a decent day and laughing at something on television, and you feel this wild, disorienting joy that immediately collides with the knowledge that there are fewer of these days left. That particular emotional whiplash has no name, but caregivers know it immediately. Then there are the logistics that blindside you from directions you never anticipated, like discovering that the wheelchair your loved one needs isn't covered under their plan because it was prescribed by the wrong specialist, or that the home hospice nurse can only stay for 45 minutes per visit, which sounded like enough until it very obviously wasn't. You learn that the medical system was not designed with caregivers in mind, and you feel that truth in your body every single day. Cue the inspirational content about caregiver self-care, the wellness influencers reminding you to take bubble baths and practice gratitude while you're Googling how to change a catheter bag at 2 in the morning. The advice is well-meaning, but it lands like someone handing you a scented candle during a house fire. Here's the hidden engine behind how caregivers actually survive. They build microsystems. Not grand self-care routines, but tiny, repeatable rituals that create the illusion of control. A specific mug for morning coffee, a 10-minute walk to the end of the street and back, a running notes app where they dump every medical question before the next appointment so their brain doesn't have to hold it all alone. The emotional landscape shifts faster than weather in a single morning. You can move through gratitude, grief, resentment, guilt about the resentment, and then back to a kind of fierce, protective love that you didn't know you were capable of. Caregivers don't talk about the resentment part enough, and the silence around it makes people feel monstrous for something that is simply human. One concrete coping strategy that actually works not as a cure, but as a pressure valve is what some call the brain dump appointment, where once a week you sit down with a notebook and write every fear, task, frustration, and unspoken feeling onto the page without editing or organizing it. It doesn't solve anything, but it moves the weight from inside your body to outside of it, and sometimes that's the only kind of relief that's available. What the dying process reveals, slowly and without your permission, is that it is also a relationship. Your loved one is still a full person with preferences, humor, bad days, and opinions. And the best caregiving holds that personhood at the center, even when the medical demands are pulling every other direction. The moments that stay with you aren't the ones where you manage the logistics perfectly. They're the ones where you put down the clipboard and just sat there together. The system around terminal illness was not built for tenderness. It was built for liability, billing codes, and insurance networks. And yet somehow, in the gap between what the system offers and what a person actually needs, caregivers are doing something quietly extraordinary every single day. There's a strange irony in the fact that the people doing some of the most complex emotional and logistical labor in our society are almost entirely unpaid, undertrained, and unsupported. And we as a culture tend to respond to this by calling them heroes instead of actually helping them. Heroism is a comfortable word. Systemic support would require inconvenient policy. The adaptations caregivers make are remarkable precisely because they happen invisibly, the shorthand you develop with the hospice nurse, the way you learn to read your loved one's pain before they can articulate it, the grocery run you time perfectly around the medication window so someone is always home. These aren't skills anyone taught you. They emerged from necessity, and they are real expertise. And yet, even with all the adaptation and the microsystems and the brain dump journals, the loss still arrives and it still takes the floor out from under you, because no amount of logistical competence prepares you for the silence after. Grief after caregiving has its own particular texture mixed into. It is relief, and the guilt about the relief, and a strange dislocation from a role that consumed you entirely. What's remarkable, and what rarely gets said, is that most caregivers, if asked, would do it again. Not because it wasn't brutal, but because being present for someone's final chapter is an act of love so complete that it reshapes who you are permanently. The person who comes out the other side of caregiving knows something about humanity that cannot be learned any other way. So the next time someone tells you a friend or family member is caring for a loved one, understand that sentence contains multitudes. An entire hidden world of pill organizers and insurance calls and sleepless nights and moments of devastating beauty. And if you want to help them, don't ask what they need. Just show up, pick a task, and do it. Because the person who's been holding everything together for everyone else has long since forgotten how to ask.